that. Next up is Graham Temple. Graham's just joining us now. Graham's from an organisation called Crainn, depending on where you are in the country. And it's an organisation that advocates for change to legislation related to cannabis use.
Hello everybody. Before I formally begin, just like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to be here. Crainn is a non-profit organisation and we do everything in our own spare time, no funding, nothing like that. In my day job, I work as a mental health nurse, and like I said, today I'm going to be speaking about regulating cannabis primarily and about how I feel we can take back control, as Eddie had said, from criminal markets and that kind of stuff. To begin, who is Crainn or Crainn or whatever way you want to say it? It means trees in Irish. So we're a harm reduction organisation. We do online harm reduction primarily. We keep our ear to the ground for emerging drug trends in Ireland and spread that awareness. We also do education, so we've had volunteers on the streets of Dublin last year giving out information about medical cannabis, and this year we had volunteers giving out pamphlets about how people could submit to the assembly here today. Then we also do community aspects, so we have meetups, that type of stuff, movie nights. And then we're also trying to bridge the gap between non-problematic drug users and the government, which we feel are quite underrepresented at national level. So today I'm going to have a look at cannabis. I'm aware already, so an overview of cannabis here. As you've heard already, we're seeing increased use. I know we heard yesterday some of these policies were set up to reduce harms and reduce use, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Instead, we measure success with seizures. Just some numbers that I'm going to say. We have about 24% lifetime use for cannabis in Ireland with adults. 50% of college students use cannabis as well, or use drugs, pardon me. And it's about 17% yearly use here in Ireland as well. So one of the big issues here is if more people are using the drug, in the market at the moment, these synthetic cannabinoids exist. So these are chemicals that are made to attempt to mimic the effects of cannabis. They have big, long, mad names. They're all in the report there if you want to have a look at them. It's their scientific names. Ireland has been listed as a country of concern by the EMCDDA, and there has been deaths in the EU due to these chemicals. As you can see them here, sometimes they come in edible form or vape form. This can appeal to young people, mainly due to the stealth aspect. These don't smell or anything like that. The dogs can't detect them when they're brought in due to the nature they're making new chemicals all the time. And also, if you look at public health advice in legal jurisdictions, they'll tell you to vape or to consume edibles instead of smoking cannabis. But if you try to follow that advice in Ireland, you're probably going to run into these synthetic cannabinoids. As you can see the headlines there was a lot of hospitalizations. Now moving on from synthetic cannabinoids to look at actual cannabis, we'll look at medical cannabis. So in Ireland we have 47 people on the medical cannabis access programme. Just compare that there to Germany or to the UK, they have a much larger amount of people getting medical cannabis. That's through private prescription in both of them. In Germany, it's about €51 million worth of medical cannabis was given out in the first quarter of this year to patients. And this map shows if you have a prescription in the UK, where you can bring it. So as you can see there, if you had a prescription in the north of Ireland, you couldn't bring it down to the Republic. You'd be a criminal with your prescription. And Irish medical cannabis refugees exist, so we know people that have had to move to Spain or move to Poland to get access to cannabis here, including someone with MS, and they don't meet the criteria of, he's been told he doesn't have enough spasticity to gain the cannabis here, so he's actually moved to Spain. Then from an enforcement point of view, as you heard yesterday, the stop and search is used. These are just some figures here to highlight. The London Met Police last year, with a population of 9 million, actually conducted less searches than the Gardaí conduct under the Drugs Act. This is from 2014. They were the last time the Garda released statistics on this. In that report, they also highlighted that these powers of stop and search are used under the Drugs Act pretty much for all stops and searches. It's the only way they can do it. So there is a big fear of them losing that power around policing. Now, if you are caught, you heard about the adult caution scheme yesterday. Now, if you already have a conviction, you're not going to get that. So if you've been criminalised because of the old laws, it doesn't apply. It's also up to the discretion of the guard whether you get that scheme or not. So not everybody that was found in possession of cannabis was offered that scheme. And it's also a 3 strikes and you're out system. So if you're a problematic user or you're in an overly policed area, you're going to be met again and again by the guard. So they're probably going to use their 3 strikes up before someone else would. So we'll just talk about maybe a little bit what is regulation, what we're going to do, what we advise. So it gives us more control than decrim. If we just decrim and we leave the market out there, the market remains in the shadow. How can we study it and see the effects of the drugs and that type of stuff? So it will be to mainly to shrink the black market. I know some people say we can't remove it completely, but we have some successes on that, and to offer safe supply, and then to set up a regulatory body to do research on cannabis. So we already have some activities that we regulate in Ireland, so alcohol, tobacco, food, different sports, and then driving, for example. People can't drive any old banger, you have to wear a seatbelt, this type of stuff. Instead of just saying cars can be used recklessly, let's ban them, we regulate around that. There is a nuance to regulation. So like I was saying about the black market, around half of Canadians now purchase their cannabis in a regulated store. After 5 years of regulation, it took about 10 years post-prohibition in America of alcohol for that to happen, that it would switch to a more legal market. Again, Ireland again highlighted as an area of concern for these synthetics. We do not see the same prevalence of synthetics in a market where people can get legal access to cannabis. If you think about demand, if someone wants to purchase cannabis, they can go and purchase regulated cannabis versus buying it on the street and not knowing what they're getting. Then underage usage then is controlled in legal jurisdictions. There are some studies that showed youth rates has remained around the same, maybe a slight increase. That could be to people being more open to reporting.
Just 1 minute, Graham.
But in my opinion, if a young person was to take an edible or vape something, at least if you took them to the hospital, if they were having a bad time, you could say to the doctor, this is exactly what they took. For example, if they drank a naggin of vodka or something like that, you know they've consumed this much alcohol and this is the effects of it. Sorry, just this graph, this shows as well that we need to not over-regulate the market, and we actually are going to be in competition with the black market, so we need to think about that when we regulate and try and have sensible public health regulation. So our harm reduction based regulations will be to allow home cultivation of cannabis immediately. There's no regulatory implementation straight away. That will remove people from the black market. Then also allow cannabis social clubs, so non-commercial smaller spaces where people can purchase and consume cannabis. Then further down the line, you'd look at state-led regulation, so that would involve like licensing, quality standards and traceability from seed to sale, and then a harm reduction campaign about not to say not just use cannabis but also safer ways of using it. And we'd just like to thank everybody. Our full submission, where I argue these points much more strongly, is available, and also the Joint Committee on Justice report. Thanks very much.
Okay.